there is digital revolution. Everything is going online. So library is not an exception to this. So each and every resource is available online. So there is a trend in decline in the use of conventional libraries. So in this context, we have Vishwa Mohan sir, Professor and HOD of Library Science in Usmania University, to talk about something regarding this decline in the trend of use of conventional libraries. So welcome you, sir. Welcome to the Department of Communication Journalism. Should we feel the conventional libraries are become irrelevant in the digital era?
Mr. Jaipal, when we talk about the relevance and irrelevance of anything, we should understand the fact that nothing is irrelevant. And in fact, way back in 1982, James Thompson has written a book that is entitled End of Libraries. So from 1982 to 2016, it's more than 3 decades. And libraries have ended. They have not ended. And at the same time, it is in 1978 itself, F.W. Lancaster has written a book entitled Toward a Paperless Information System. And as a matter of fact, he was known for paperless society. And people felt that there will be no paper in the society. But today we see that there is more use of paper. So what does it mean? It means everything is relevant. And we can also, talk about the Future Shock, written by Alvin Toffler in 1970. Oh, it had sent shockwaves in the society, and people were really, apprehensive. What will happen to their jobs when, IT or computers, replace the human resources in the organizations? But that has happened. As a matter of fact, employment opportunities have increased, and people find more employment. So that is how it goes on. So that is how what I would like to state is that whatever may be the revolution, everything would coexist. Like all things will coexist. For instance, let us take another example. Now you have e-currency, but does it mean that paper currency is totally irrelevant? Now we are using paper currency also. So that is how things go together. And just because digital resources, digital documents are getting proliferated, it does not mean that the print material will not be used. As a matter of fact, we should also understand another fact. That fact is, what are digital libraries? Digital libraries are nothing but transformed conventional libraries. As a matter of fact, it is also a library. And where does digital library exist? It exists in the conventional library itself. So therefore, it is an improvement of conventional library itself. And of course, you may be aware of the fact that, with the applications of Web 2.0 technologies, libraries are getting transformed into Library 2.0. And what does Library 2.0 mean? It means that, it is a modern library, modernized library, IT-based library, where, in the library itself, you will have digital resources and, loud spaces. And at the same time, mobile devices are used in the library. There will be space for conversations. So all these things are, the developments that are taking place in the conventional libraries itself. So therefore, conventional libraries will not become irrelevant. They will become more relevant.
But people are more migrating to conventional digital eras. They're using the iPods, earphones, electronic ebooks like that. So there is a trend. There is migration from traditional to digital. So to what extent we can say that traditional conventional libraries are there? To
Now,
what
in
extent?
fact, you're right. That is what it is. Now, what is happening slowly, people are tending to use electronic resources more. And that is why I said that, even these electronic devices, electronic resources are provided by libraries, conventional
Yes.
libraries themselves. Because as a matter of fact, the users, particularly those, who come from, say economically lower what you call strata. Now these people they cannot afford. So therefore, what libraries, conventional libraries do these days, they are not lending books, print books. They are lending the Kindle reader. They are lending the ebook readers. So that is how what is happening here is that the form of the documents is changing, and then the change is facilitated by the conventional library itself. And at the same time, you should also understand one more point. That is, though there is proliferation of electronic resources, people tend to read paper rather in the sense of print media, print materials, because both the media, they have their own merits and demerits. Everything has its own merits and its own demerits. So you cannot say that one media is superior and the other medium is inferior. No, it is not like that.
But with regarding to cost and accessibility, the digital media is very easy to access and use. So the people are using that. So how can you prevent like that? So these days, the people are reading the newspaper on mobile phones like that. So how can we retain that?
Now, in fact, whatever you said is to a certain extent correct.
Okay.
But it does not mean that it is not that easy. Newspaper, you take newspaper, or you have Google Maps.
Yeah.
Now, if you take an atlas or a big map, you can spread it and then you can see everything. But on the screen, it is very difficult to navigate. And as a matter of fact, there are many cases where people prefer to read print documents. And of course, as you rightly said, that they have their own merits, because hyperlinks will be there, navigation will be easier, and then the digital documents have wonderful features, such as there can be animation in that, and then there can be images, there can be audios, and then videos, and everything can be there. So such features you will not have in conventional documents. So apart from that, the conventional documents, they have their own merits. Like for instance, I will give one example. As a matter of fact, when you purchase any document, in certain cases, it all depends on what kind of license you take. In certain cases, access only license. Okay. That means, you do not have anything in your hands. Like, libraries which procure e-documents, they will not have anything as, the collection in their library. And then, as a matter of fact, they are deprived of possessing the physical resource, right? And only access will be there. And if the access is cut off, then there will be a problem. And there are certain instances where the librarians in the world, they protested because of introduction of digital rights management.
DRM. Yes.
DRM, what do you call it? Say restrictions. Like, some of the publishers, they restrict the access of the document also. You cannot use it for more than 20, 25 times. You cannot access more than that. Now, if that is the case, after the use, you are cut off, and then you are not, you are denied the access. And if that is the case, then naturally, what kind of resources you are going to have? And whereas, in the print era, once you have purchased a book, that book is your permanent asset, your permanent resource. And that book you can lend it to hundreds of users. So that is how librarians feel that print materials are more advantageous than digital resources, because there are various complications involved in digital resources. And another important aspect is there are certain restrictions, like they say publishers, or rather vendors of e-resources. What do they specify? They specify that you should use this particular device only. That means you can access the resources only on a specified device with a specified software, specified connection. All these things are specified, and you all know that uh, in countries where there are some problems, like electricity problems, or rather say server problems, and then if you cannot maintain these things perfectly, then all of a sudden power goes off, your system goes down, and all of a sudden your server fails. And unless and until maintenance takes place very well, digital resources will not really serve the users. Whereas print book, let current go, let it go off, and then you need not have any devices. There is less dependence, but it does not mean that books have all the advantages. They too have their own limitations. Like for instance, you take digital resources, they are available to you even from a remote place. That means you need not carry the load also, and they are available online. And even if you want to, what do you call, if you have some digital resources, offline resources, so you can have thousands of books in a pen drive. So that kind of facility you have, and you have wonderful what do you call resources and facilities and accesses, like open access books are there. So millions of books are there. For instance, let us take an example of Internet Archive, which
Yes.
contains 3 million documents, 3 million books, and it means that it's a wonderful treasure. And you have World Digital Library, you have Universal Digital Library, a million document library. It is 10 lakh books. And you take any university library that may not have, particularly in country like India, that may not have 1 million documents. But whereas these are the digital libraries that have wonderful collection. And you have Indian Digital Library, Digital Library of India, okay, and you have Project Gutenberg and Google Books and whatnot. There are so many, but at the same time, it does not mean that all these books, all these digital libraries contain each and every document. It is not possible, and there are so many reasons. Copyright implications will be there. You cannot digitize everything, and everything is not born digital.
Okay.
Okay, so if that is the case, there will be certain materials, they may still exist in conventional document form. But as a matter of fact, we are not really bothered about whether it is conventional document, print document, or digital document. All these documents are housed by the present libraries, and you cannot say that conventional libraries remain like conventional libraries only. Conventional libraries are developing into hybrid libraries, where there will be print documents and also electronic resources. Now, that is the case. Then, how do you say that conventional libraries are irrelevant? They are not
Yeah,
irrelevant.
but with respect to cost, accessibility, and flexibility, so which one is better, digital or conventional? With respect to cost, flexibility, and accessibility.
Now,
So,
that is what I said,
yes,
because both have advantages,
because people look
disadvantages.
at these items more,
As a
flexibility,
matter of
cost,
fact,
and
yes.
accessibility.
Now, as a matter of fact, your print media, it is little
Costly. Storage
costlier
also.
compared to electronic documents.
Mm,
And as a matter of fact, there is open access revolution now. It is not only digital revolution; it is also open access revolution. That means almost many documents, they are available free of cost.
yes.
So that means how do you really talk about those things, naturally, as far as cost component
Cost.
comes into picture. Now they are not at all costly, they are free.
Freely available.
When they are free, the cost is not at all involved. And as a matter of fact, the Internet Archives library, the digital library, it has a slogan. Their mission is that universal access to all knowledge.
Yeah.
That is the idea. As a matter of fact, even conventional libraries' philosophy or their vision and mission was that. See, knowledge should be accessible to all.
Mm.
And I may quote Dr. S.R. Ranganathan, who says that he propounded 5 laws of library science. He says that books are for use, and every reader his or her book. What does it mean? It means that it implies that every reader should get access to his or her book. And he has gone a little beyond user need, and he says that every book should get its reader. So every book its reader. The third law of library science proclaims that. So that is the philosophy of librarianship, and that is the philosophy of library service. So therefore, whether it is conventional library or digital library, their aim is to rather ensure universal accessibility to all knowledge. But how, what do you call, what kind of developments take place, we cannot say it so soon, because it is a long way. We have to go a long way.
So, what innovations conventional libraries may bring to increase their usage?
Yes.
So, what are the
Now,
innovations?
as a matter of fact, what is that we need to do is, of course, as it is, conventional libraries are bringing in so many innovations, like they are developing themselves into, or transforming themselves into digital libraries. That is one thing. And now they are going to be library 2.0 or library 3.0 in future, where they will ensure that all types of documents in all formats should be available to users. And they will make louder spaces where library should become center of activities in any organization. Like, if it is university library should be the heart of the university activities. I mean, no, the teaching, learning, research, and publication activities. And at the same time, even a public library should be the center of activities in a society, in a locality. So that's, even the special libraries in R&D organizations. So what is that they should do is that, they have to attract more and more users by providing, or rather meeting, their requirements, whatever they may be, and by providing rather, documents in all formats. So that is one thing. And then, they should also conduct orientation programs, outreach programs. They have to reach out. And like, as I said in the beginning, mobile devices can be provided to the users. And then, most important thing is, particularly for students, for learning process, the teaching faculty and also library, they should work together and promote reading habits. Now the reading habits, if they are confined to only examination oriented reading and then competitive exams oriented reading, then, naturally every library becomes irrelevant. So therefore, what is that I would like to state is that actually reading should be a wider reading, rather at least at higher education level. The students should go for, wider reading. They have to read as much literature as possible, and there will be classics, fundamental works in every subject. And all these classics and fundamental works, they are available in the libraries. And of course, the digital libraries like our internet archives, and then say UDL, Universal Digital Library, they have such, classics, and all copyright free documents are digitized now. And maybe, tomorrow there will be world digital libraries. And then, of course, as it is, Library of Congress is, its library is world digital library. But there will be digital libraries that they will contain millions of documents, and then all knowledge will be accessible to everyone. And finally, that will realize the goal, or the vision of the great, what do you call, philosophers, and then, librarians like Ranganathan and others.
Could you please explain about Library 2.0? So what it actually means? So what is different from Library 1.0?
Yeah. Library 2.0 is a library that applies Web 2.0 technologies, because, as a matter of fact, when Web 2.0 technologies are introduced, and almost all professions and fields of activity, and then fields of services, they have started applying Web 2.0 technologies. Like, in the, what do you call, hospitals and medical field, okay, uh, they have applied Web 2.0 technologies, and such medical services are called, medicine 2.0.
Yes.
Similarly, business 2.0 came out as, what do you call, development of
From the previous
business
version.
in the society. And similarly, libraries also, if they apply Web 2.0 technologies and provide services based on Web 2.0 technologies, they are called Library 2.0. And what will happen if you apply Web 2.0 technologies? And by application of Web 2.0 technologies, you will be in a position to provide dynamic and more productive services. As a matter of fact, by applying Web 2.0 technologies, libraries can develop their own user communities, where the users will exchange information, and they will develop their own, what do you call, relations. And that is how, information exchange takes place. Communities develop, community of library users, and they can also develop wikis, where wikis will be resourceful, rather than information sources. And they provide RSS feeds, like, really simple
Simple.
syndication. And in other words, which means that, they will provide the current information, what is latest, what are the latest developments through RSS feeds, and folksonomy will be there. There are, so many services that, a library 2.0 can provide. by applying Web 2.0 technologies. And as a matter of fact, with the application of modern technologies, libraries also invite the participation of the users, the patrons. Patrons' participation is more important now for all activities in the library, like even information processing. You can also tag the information sources if you want, and that kind of that with folksonomy tools, you can tag the information resources, which will be helpful in information retrieval from
Yes.
the resources that are there in the library. And one more thing we have to understand that these days what is happening, most of the libraries, since there will be copyright problems, copyright
Yes.
implications, you cannot digitize each and everything. But what is that they do, particularly the R&D libraries and then university libraries? What is they are doing? Academic libraries, they develop institutional repositories. It is not only digital library. There is institutional libraries or institutional repository is also a digital library, but the only difference is that a digital library contains all digital documents,
Documents.
okay, digital resources, and whereas institutional repository is also a digital library, but it contains the scholarly output, intellectual output, or academic output, whatever research output produced by that particular institution, or all documents that are properties of that particular institution. So that is why it is called, it is a digital library of the documents that are pertaining to a particular library. So that is why it is called institutional repository. And as a matter of fact, institutional repositories are also very, what do you call, essential and indispensable tools now. And every organization should develop institutional repositories so that their documents will be accessible to their own users online.
Accessibility and affordability remains a major constraint in accessing web resources. So how can we overcome that? Because most of the people don't know how to access, how to utilize that.
Yes.
So how can we overcome that?
Now, as a matter of fact, when you talk about web resources, it is a very, what do you call,
Lengthy.
cumbersome experience. Like,
Okay.
If you try to access documents on the web or websites, and by using search engines, if you try to retrieve some documents, you will find that, millions of hits will be there,
Yes.
millions of documents, web pages will be traced, and it becomes humanly impossible to open all those things and then see, and it will take several decades to do that. And
Yes.
that is the one of the, say, drawbacks or demerits of web resources. And at the same time, when you use search engines like Google or Yahoo, whatever it is, and then retrieve millions of pages,
Documents.
and naturally all of them, are they relevant to your, rather subject of interest, subject of your interest? They may not be relevant.
Relevant.
Maybe only 1% of them may be relevant. How do you really find out that? How do you trace whatever it is? But at the same time, the digital resources, rather their retrieval and accessibility and all that, has rather its own merits also, like such strategies.
Yes.
In the conventional libraries, when we are using card catalog, you had such limitations. Whereas, if you want to search anything on web or online opaques or what do you call digital libraries, you have various search options, search strategies, like free text searching, truncated searching, Boolean logic searching, keyword searching, field searching. There are so many such options, and at the same time, navigation is also wonderful. Like when you have hyper documents,
Yes.
okay, then hyper documents or hypertext, they contain hyperlinks. So from one link to another link you can go. So in other words, that is more or less like random access you have. It is not sequential access. You have random access that facilitates the user to, what do you call, navigate and then access the required information.
Okay. So
And there are many developments in this. For instance, let us take Google itself. Now, for instance, you are typing a particular keyword that even if you don't know the spelling, It will give various
Various
options now.
options.
And then, you need not type the whole search element. You can select one of the search elements if it is relevant and then use it. So that is how, there are so many advantages. So by and large, what is that I would like to state is everything has its own merits and its own demerits. And naturally, what we have to understand is that all these things coexist. And we have to have a, what do you call it, such an integrated approach.
Digital information explosion is there. So what does actually it mean?
Now, digital information explosion is nothing but proliferation,
Proliferation.
abundant growth of digital information. Now, people say that it is almost more than 2 to 3 zettabytes of information. That means, millions and millions of libraries of Congress. The Library of Congress has, almost more than 10 million documents. 10 million documents is equal to almost more than a crore, 1 crore documents. And such libraries of Congress, if you convert this amount of information into how many libraries of Congress, it will be several thousand millions of
Yes.
libraries of Congress. And so much information, how do you handle? There are problems relating to digital information management also.
Yes, DRM.
Not exactly DRM, digital information management
Yes.
itself.
Sorry.
DRM is digital rights management.
Okay.
This is digital information management. Yeah, in other words, we can say this is DIM.
DIM.
Yeah, and there are software solutions also for digital resource management. They are called DRMs also. They are also DRMs, but they are called the software solutions are called digital resource management.
Could you please explain the DRM, digital right management?
Now, digital rights management, it means that, see, you have intellectual property rights.
Okay.
What is intellectual property?
It's a right one.
Anything that is an output of intellectual activity, like, new inventions, discoveries, or rather ideas, new techniques, all these things. And then, all these, what you call new ideas, new knowledge, in other words, okay? That is the property of the creator, one
Yes.
who generates, okay? So his rights should be protected. And how you are protecting his rights? With
Limited access.
with
Access to something.
intellectual property rights.
Yes.
Okay, now that is intellectual property right. And now you have digital resources. These digital resources contain, again, knowledge or information, whatever it is, in digital form. And whose property it is? It is the property of the publisher or writer, whatever it is, author, right? So naturally, by accessing it freely, or rather than hacking it, or rather what you call downloading it unauthorizedly, okay, and selling it or spreading it without the permission of the author, you cannot do that. And then what happens when you have certain digital resources available online, okay, anybody can access them. So naturally, what happens? The rights of the digital resources, okay, rights of the owner of the digital resources, they are deprived, and he is at loss. So therefore, there are some software solutions to protect the rights of the owners of the digital resources, and that is called digital rights management. In other words, it is the right given to, rather, the author to sell, or the publisher or bookseller, whatever it is, to sell those particular documents, okay, those particular digital resources, okay, without, rather, what you call say piracy and all that, and then without what you call getting victimized by piracy and all that. So these, what you call, this particular digital rights management solutions, they will ensure the rights of the publisher or the author. How do they do that? They will restrict the access. For instance, when you say that a particular resource is DRM enabled resource, that means that particular solution, that particular software will restrict the access. For instance, you are purchasing my document, digital document. Now you cannot have absolute rights on that. So to what extent you can use it? You can only access it, or only download once, or rather print out. So there will be permissions given to you. And of course, even otherwise, people may misuse. For that, again, that intellectual property rights will come into picture. But till intellectual property rights come into picture, and then somebody files a case against you, all that, in order to avoid that, the publishers and then vendors of digital resources, they themselves impose restrictions with the help of DRM.
DRM. So although there is a proliferation of information regarding the books or something is going, so what motivates the writer to write these books or something like that? Because already proliferation is there. So what can motivate them to
No,
write like that?
in fact, it is a very good question. Uh, See, the thing is, there is no end to knowledge.
Yes.
Knowledge is dynamic, and that is what we teach in our library science. Now, what do we say? Knowledge is dynamic. Knowledge is a dynamic continuum, and there is no end. It is knowledge is infinite. Knowledge is manifolded, multifaceted, all that. So that means, as a matter of fact, there is no end for innovations and creativity. So what makes them is that every day you are coming out with some solutions for your problems, but these solutions sometimes become problems for your own self, and again you have to what do you call explore newer solutions. So that is how research is a continuous activity. As a matter of fact, knowledge keeps on growing. There is no end to that. And what makes you to generate new knowledge? Because you have your own, because it is like this academic interest,
Yes.
business interest, isn't it? Social interest. There are so many factors because of which you try to create new knowledge.
So I think there is a problem in archiving the material or documents. So what it exactly means? So we can archive the eh, normal documents, but what about the print digital documents?
Now, as a matter of fact, uh, one way digitization and digital libraries is a solution for archives.
Archives.
As a matter of fact, print material has its own demerits. Like when it comes to health hazards, print material has its own demerits.
Demerits.
Like it accumulates dust, and there are so many cases where the people who work in libraries, they get professional rather health hazards, rather they're exposed to that professional health hazards, like asthma will be there, and then allergies they develop, and so many issues will be there.
The life of paper also.
And then preservation, therefore preserving even print material is also a task. And as a matter of fact, preserving print material in the form of digital resources or digital documents, it has offered a solution, as a matter of fact. And now these digital resources, they are dust free.
Yes.
There is no problem, and at the same time, large amount of information you can store in a very small space. That is another advantage. But at the same time, you have health hazards with digital resources also, like the devices which you are using, they emit certain radiation, and that radiation will affect your eyes. That use of cell phones, okay, because now that you have even what do you call digital resources accessible on cell phone, people are using. But at the same time, use of cell phone, gaming, all that, that will cause a lot of diseases also. Like first and foremost thing is cervical spondylosis, and eyesight will be affected, and radiation may cause many more diseases to the biosystem. So that's there are so many problems. Of course, you may say that we have low radiation devices also, like Kindle.
Amazon Kindle is there.
Amazon Kindle itself is bringing out so many latest devices which are nearer to the what do you call anti-glare, and then without glare, something like that, and they are so close to the print material. You feel that as if you are reading the print book only. There will be no glare at all. Even in the sun, you can use the reader. So if that is the case, that it's good, as a matter of fact. But at the same time, we cannot say that it is 100% what do you call foolproof.
Foolproof.
Because
So there is a
and at the same time, yes, digital resources can be hacked, and if something goes wrong, get
manipulation.
corrupt. There are so many issues also, and at in open systems, environment, we cannot ensure 100% what you call security. And there are so many ways and means to what you call crack the
Yes.
passwords, encryptions, and whatnot. All that is there. And one more important thing, what I would like to state is that uh, in one of the conferences, somebody was saying that our software is very strong software.
Advanced,
It has, yeah,
foolproof,
it has, it doesn't have only one key. It has a primary key and also
secondary
secondary
key.
key. Therefore, our software is more secure, he said. Then what I said, you have forgotten another key.
Must,
People have master key.
must.
If they have master key, then you can't stop them.
Cannot be foolproof then. Recently, Delhi High Court is said that photocopying of the copyright materials does not infringement the rights of copyrights for a fair use policy. So, what do you comment like that? So, what is
No, in fact, when it comes to infringement
photocopying
of copyrights or
does not amount?
intellectual property rights, as a matter of fact, the civilized society openly says that all knowledge belongs to the society itself,
Society.
and there should be free flow of knowledge. There should not be any restrictions. Knowledge should be accessible to everyone. Knowledge should flow from all directions, all that. So based on this philosophy, this ideology, what we do is that though we have to honor, protect
Copyright.
the rights of the creator of knowledge, the author, the publisher, whomsoever it may be. But then, at the same time, we should also see that a piece of idea, piece of knowledge generated by somebody, it is not his own exclusive property. It is the property of the society, humanity. So, therefore, see, when you want to promote education, you want to spread knowledge, then there should not be restrictions. So, therefore, the civilized society, it doesn't find fault with fair use. So, in the legal system itself, there is a provision that if you are copying something for your academic purpose, for your teaching and learning purpose, it comes under fair use. So, you are not penalized.
So, there are so many journals available online. So, UGC Infonet is one of them. So, to what extent you can utilize them for the preparation knowledge?
Now, as a matter of fact, UGC has come out in a very big way to facilitate research activity in the universities and also teaching and learning activity. What UGC did actually, they have launched a network called InflipNet, and also through InflipNet, UGC Infonet
Yes.
is another consortium of e-journals, and through this consortium, UGC endeavored to provide access to thousands of journals, and this is for research scholars and students in universities and colleges. And as a matter of fact, that is a boon in itself because now you have access to thousands of journals. But when it comes to the rate of usage, now that is not that encouraging. Now, what we need to do is the university libraries and college libraries should conduct orientation programs, and then programs to motivate the research scholars and the students, PG students, to make use of these. And at the same time, we have got so many open access journals also, like DJOA, Directory of DOAJ, Directory of Open Access Journals. This directory also uh, provides access to thousands of journals. But then, to what extent these e-resources are really, utilized? Enlist is also there. And there are certain databases, ebook databases, and they're also accessible to the scholars and then students and then whatnot, the teachers. The only thing is that once the academic activity becomes more intensified and the research activity, we have to give more emphasis, and then we have to really give a serious say thought on improving and ensuring quality research work in the universities, and almost all academic activities should be based on literature research, and then literature review, and we should see that the scholars and the students should use all these resources. Without using all these, and they will use all these resources only then we when we give regular assignments, and then we ensure serious research activity in the universities, and then certainly the rate of use of all these e-resources will improve.
So where the conventional libraries and digital libraries have to coexist, are they complement to each other, are they competition to
Yeah.
each other?
In fact,
So what are things in future?
yeah, in fact, the conventional library, digital library are one and the same, but then it is another form of conventional library, or rather transforming form of conventional library. And of course, when you want to be very very specific, then you can say that digital library is totally different from
Yes.
conventional library, because conventional library is one where we had books, reading rooms, all that. But at the same time, the same conventional library will house the digital resources, and then it will have institutional repository or a digital library itself,
So
where
integration.
the students will go there, and then they are provided with the devices, and they will sit there and use those devices and access the resources. And that's conventional library and digital library, they coexist, and they
Complement
complement with each other, and they supplement with
each
each
other.
other. So this is what it is. And then we can't say what will be the future, but as far as the present situation is concerned, they coexist, and there is rather life for print material and also digital material.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming to our studio. Thank you for participating in this program, sir. Although the digital libraries and conventional libraries have their own merits and demerits, but both the libraries have to coexist and complement each other.